beginning of 2001, Alabama was larger than South Carolina. Alabama had a larger GDP, gross domestic product, and faster economic growth than South Carolina. That's not Georgia. It's not Tennessee. It's not North Carolina, Texas, Florida, so on. South Carolina. But we have lost that in the last 20 years. I know it's 2026. We lost it by 2020. Okay? So because we have operated out of a mindset of what we're going to lose, scarcity, or what we don't have, scarcity, as opposed to what we might gain, abundance, and what we do have, we have not implemented policies that would help grow our state to make it better for talent recruitment and retention.
All righty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy to welcome in our actual third host, our third co-host, Mayor of Montgomery, Steven Reed. You are probably one of our more regular guests at this point. We're always happy to have you, and we like having you on. It's really you come on probably as much as anybody, and we like it. We don't like a lot of people coming on multiple times, but you're very good. Yeah.
So I was wondering when you said that, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? It's kind of like,
thing.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
The whole Cheers thing was, it's great to go, everybody knows your name, right?
Right.
But sometimes you wonder, am I the only one still coming to this restaurant club? Is that why they know my name? Because I don't realize the drinks are bad and the beer's warm. So I just wasn't sure. I just wanted to say that.
No. It's always a good conversation when you're here, and so we like having you on. And it's because we've actually got 3 guests today. So I mean,
right,
now
you're telling me good to be here, but keep it short and concise.
That's right. Yeah, man.
I like how you just did that.
Exactly.
That was a good setup. That was a good setup. I'm glad that you're here. Just don't eat all the food. Okay.
Hey, but you're in first. So you're the headliner. It's like the old Carson show. You're going to be on the end of the couch later. Listening to some of the guy handling the animals.
How about our City Hall?
Hey, there you go.
Our City Hall documentary.
I was going to say,
City Hall doc.
Yeah, and I was going to say, between talking about Cheers and Johnny Carson, we're skewing way old, y'all.
Yeah, pretty much everybody under 40 has already left. I mean,
right.
Or they're Googling, trying to figure out what the heck are these guys talking about.
What theme song?
Yeah,
right.
So, how have things been?
Man, things have been real busy in the city of Montgomery, man. You talk about a roller coaster when it comes to things that are happening. I mean, we got a hospital we got to save. We got a bond we got to pass. We got a, professional football team we're trying to keep in the state. And we still got to pick up the trash, fill potholes, and catch the bad guys all at the same time. So your choice, you pick where you want to go. But it's been a lot of good things happening. And we had, summer programs as we get ready to go back to school. So it's been a lot going on in our city.
Yeah, it's right. You're right. All that and making the trains run on time. So let's start with the bond issue. And I've written about that a little bit, and I know it's been a hot topic around there. I think the reason it's been a hot topic is I think most people recognize that it is a good idea. I think there is some political opportunism going on there that is kind of holding things back, because there have been a number of folks that have opposed it, I think, for no other reason than it's good for them politically to say that they opposed you on something. But I think building the arena in that area downtown, knocking down the place where I used to go and write my stories, and building an arena. It's because they're doing this, David. The proposal is the city now owns the old Montgomery Advertiser building. It's right along the river. It's a fantastic location. If you put up an arena right there, you can really build a very nice Riverwalk kind of community that's right down through there, and make it rival, something like out of San Antonio or some of the better places. But it could really reshape again downtown. I remember when I first started at the Advertiser, we were on Washington Street, which is now the county building. Yeah, the county building. And you at the end of the night, after I went in and took the football scores at the high school games, the only thing you did downtown was run to your car. You just ran out because there was nothing. There was nothing. There was only bad intentions downtown at that point. There were no restaurants. There was nothing to do down there. There was anything. And then Bobby Bright and the folks that were leading the city at the time got the Biscuit Stadium in. Really started revamping downtown. It's turned into what it is today. I mean those hotels, those things that are down there now that you go and see, none of that was there. None of that was there this is not that long ago. So where do you feel like that is now? What do you feel like the pathway forward could be for that, if there is one? I know they've held off the vote a couple of times. Where do you think the standing is for that bond issue to be able to get that done?
Well, first of all, I think we'll get the bond issue done. I'll start. I won't be able to lead. We'll get it done. And I think what has happened is the process has been gummed up. And if you're a person that hasn't been familiar with the legislature, look, I first worked as a page for former state representative, late John Buskey, when I was in sixth grade. So I've been around that process of legislative matters since I was 12. I say that because from that point to when I disavowed myself of all political stuff, going into business and moving away from here, I came back and ended up starting a government relations firm before I worked for Lieutenant Governor Jim Folsom Jr. And in that process, when I was a little kid as a page, the Democrats ran everything, to when I came back as an adult to be a part of the process, that sometimes when you're talking about big things, I don't care if it was Don Siegelman's lottery, or I don't care if it was Bob Riley's Amendment 1. It doesn't really matter. When it's something big for Alabama, we tend to grab our seats and we tend to want to say, let's just stay where we are. That's just kind of been the nature of Alabamians, which is why Birmingham isn't Atlanta, nor Nashville, nor Charlotte, and why Alabama as a state isn't South Carolina, because we just haven't done the things necessary to continue to grow our cities, our rural areas, our small towns, and our state. Because we tend to say, if we can't see all of it, we don't trust our leaders enough to do most of it, right? And so thereby we do nothing. And I think understanding that philosophy and understanding that mindset and the culture here has really put me in a good place to understand how this thing could play out. And I think it's almost been right where former Mayor Bobby Bright told me probably 2 years ago. Very similar. I almost want to say exactly like, but I'm going to say very, very similar to what he told me he dealt with. Leslie Sanders, who was a part of that Riverfront Development Corporation or Foundation, told me Joe Perkins, Daniel Hughes, all the people who led that along with Dr. David Browner pretty much told me, you're going to have the people who don't want to do anything, and these are the things that are going to happen. And it really has been almost according to script. And the late Mark Kennedy, I think, was, one of the big faces and voices for that, which was ironic when Mayor Bright called me out of the blue the Monday before the Tuesday vote to say, hey, I support you. I think it's what not only the city needs, but he made the important point that I tried to drive home, is that it's a regional project. It's a regional bond issue when you talk about tourism. Listen, I'd love for everybody to stay in Montgomery, but for a lot of us, when we visit on vacation at Disney World, Disneyland, and we go to the beach, we don't know what municipality we're in. Most of us don't really care. We really look at convenience and what's nice, and maybe in my case, where my loyalty points are going to get me, maybe a nice little upgrade. But those are the things that really play a role into moving our city, our region, and our state forward, are really doing big things more often than once every 20 years. Josh and Dave, most cities will take on a project of this type, usually a bigger size than this, every 5 to 10 years. 20, you're behind most cities that are trying to grow. But I think it's also shown us those who want to maintain the status quo in Montgomery, which is, I think, a weakening but loud voice in the city versus those that want to see Montgomery grow. So it's basically grow or status quo. And I think the grow crowd went out over time. And I think as we share, fact from fiction with people in some of the districts whose council members are voting no on this right now, I think that ultimately changes over these next several weeks and we get there. But it is in our nature as Alabamians and as Montgomeryans. And I'm native here, and I feel very comfortable saying this, my folks being here since the mid to late 50s, that Montgomery has been a sky is falling city. Right. By and large, we operate out of a scarcity mentality as opposed to an abundance mentality. And that's just kind of been our nature here for decades. And so when you add that culture and that backdrop with the politics, and I agree with you on what you said, Josh, on that, it kind of gums up the process and it makes it slow down a little bit. But I'm committed to it because we need these things to grow the city, to grow investments in all districts and in all neighborhoods. I don't have to remind the council members, all of your constituents are my constituents, and so I have to look at this from a big macro level, if you will, in terms of what's best for the city. And in order to do some of the things they want to do, you got to be able to pay for it. And that's despite, the sideline CFOs and the finance experts and the locker room lawyers, who have all these outside opinions that they've kind of confused and misled not only the council, but I would say the public with. And we'll deal with that. That comes with the process. I've seen it in the legislature over the years. I've watched it even as mayor in my 6 years in office. So you just got to stick with it and keep going, and we'll do that. And it'll get passed.
The politics of it, though, when you get into this thing about how it's, I think that it's become, a kind of a thing for people to oppose you on some things.
I agree.
And I obviously I think I've written about it. I think there's a lot of it built into race. That
you're not wrong.
That city has, the racial aspects of things that have gone on and the stuff that has happened over the course of the years now. It's so ridiculous, the things that they've kind of laid at your feet, the things that I was writing about in 2015, 10 years or more ago, that were taking place, and, these problems that have existed in Montgomery for so long. But from a practical standpoint, you do have to deal with that. So how do you, is there a way to combat that? I'm for so many people, common sense and reality doesn't seem to work anymore. But is there a way to combat that and to get things done and to avoid that just opposing you because it's politically advantageous to oppose you?
Listen, as the old saying goes, I don't know if you can ever take the politics out of politics. Right. That is kind of baked in the cake in terms of what we do, in particular with some of the actors that are involved and probably the loudest with this issue. And I think certainly as you come, for what will be election season for us here in the next several months, there's always that factor. So you always kind of have to understand where the main show is and the side show and all that. And unfortunately for us, when you are the first Black mayor of the city of Montgomery, the birthplace of the Confederacy and birthplace of civil rights, race is a context. You cannot get away from it. It is the rose with the thorns, and you have to take them both. And I think, from my standpoint, that comes with the territory. You have to figure out a way as a leader to navigate that and to make sure that you're making the case of why these things, are so important, despite the political polarization, despite the racial polarization that exists not only in our city, in our state, but throughout this country, that these are things that we should be able to agree upon because they benefit everyone. It's a job creator. It's an economic force multiplier. It's something that will benefit the region, even though beyond the city borders of Montgomery, and especially where it's located. And for those people who are on the outskirts of the city who say, what's that to do with me? You have to show them, the financial windfall that we get to be able to pave those streets, fill those potholes, make sure our police officers have newer cars. We got 34 on the way already, by the way. Somebody act like, that we don't. We've invested more in PD than I know my predecessor did. And so, we have all these things, but we're not going to make this a police state now. There's some who would have us spend every dollar on public safety and put nothing in education, put nothing in parks and recreation, put nothing in after-school programs or violence prevention programs or nothing in mental health and nothing in root cause issues of the violence. Now, there is that group that would have us put every dollar into that. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to balance those things. But I think for us, we try to make, the common sense argument, which again, as you mentioned, is not so common, about why investing in ourselves is not only something that we should do, it's something that we have to do. Councilman Rondé Mitchell showed a video last night that I encourage people to see about making Georgia doing a $1 billion, that's billion with a B, investment into its city, most if not all of it through bonds. Birmingham, very, very similar in the last several years when you look at their different authorities and what they've done. Huntsville, about $400 million. Mobile, $300 million just in their downtown arena alone, not even talking about their airport and their bridge infrastructure. The city of Auburn, heck, just passed a $243 million bond issue, I think, last month. Mm-hmm. So we know that cities are doing it. And so in some cases, we have to ask, are people Team Montgomery or are they not? And I think some of the people that you hear are not Team Montgomery, they're Team me. Mm-hmm. And I've always said this from the Little League all the way through. You can't win with me guys. You can't win with me girls. You have to have we guys and we girls. And you got some team me's out there that the community has to really assess the Montgomery of today in terms of, are those the people that we want on the team for tomorrow? Now, you're always going to have the people in the cheap seats yelling stuff and posting things on Facebook. When I click on some of these, folks that, live in other places, it's laughable to me that they're commenting on Montgomery. But I wonder and I question the people, and I end with this, those that live in Montgomery that question it. We're in the best financial position the city has been in, certainly in the 2000s. And both of my predecessors would tell you that and would say that maybe one might not say it privately, but one would say it publicly. And those council members who've been there since the 2000s would tell you that, private and publicly. So we know what we're doing when it comes to money. We've been great at that, and I don't mind saying this as nobody else will. In particular, when people want to say what we aren't great at. We've been great at that. And I think for those that are inside Montgomery, the question has to be, if you want the city to grow, how do you propose we grow without any revenue? So if you don't have an occupational tax that Auburn has, which everybody keeps wanting to point to, or Birmingham has, which is about 22% of their budget, and the other 25, 26 other cities have, if you don't have that, then you have to bring in revenue some other way for us, which is great. It's tourism. And it works for us, and it's built our, general fund to be able to do more things, buy police cars, buy fire trucks and sanitation trucks, all those things, upgrade the parks and fill potholes and all that. But you can only do that with revenue. Last I checked, ain't nobody making up Confederate money just to pass out. Now, the Trump coin may work for some, but the Trump coin ain't currency for those of us who really want to invest in our city. Right. So we just have to make sure that we understand how this works. And I think you have some who are of the no tax crowd, that don't do anything crowd, but then want to say, everything that should be done, that crowd is always going to be there, and it's getting weaker. But we have to make that argument to those that are inside the city and those who do business in the city that Pike Road needs us to do this. Prattville needs us to do this. Wetumpka, Tuskegee, Hayneville, Selma, Clanton, Greenville, they all need, because they all are in the catchment area of the Montgomery metro region, which is carrying central Alabama and can only carry it if it has the revenue needed to carry it. And that revenue is not for, sideline politicians, to act like they are financial experts all of a sudden when they're the ones who were around and helped get the city in the ditch that my administration got it out of.
Let's, Mr. Mayor, let's talk a little bit about Jackson Hospital. Where do things stand with the hospital now, currently?
That's a great question. Let me say this. I will tell you that if a month ago you had asked me what we'd be talking about today, I would have told you Jackson Hospital, not the bond issue. But again, those things happen, and you get sometimes the unexpected occurrences. Jackson Hospital, to me, is 1A, the most urgent issue in this community and in this region, and I would say thereby the state. That we have to make sure, again, that we are operating out of a scarcity mentality, that we're operating out of an abundance mentality. And we have to think about Jackson Hospital in terms of what it means for the residents of Montgomery, not what it means for Rick Jackson, who was running for governor in Georgia, and his company, and those that are running Jackson Hospital. My shareholders are the residents of Montgomery. As I said before, born and raised here, left, chose to come back, gonna be here, whether I'm mayor or after I'm mayor. So that hospital, which is basically downtown, maybe 2 miles from City Hall, maybe shorter than that from where I live, has to be a sustainable healthcare option for not just the city, but for the region again. And we have to do everything possible to make sure that we're operating in the best course for the residents of Montgomery, and in some cases, the residents of other cities and other counties. And so right now we're in a holding pattern. Jackson Hospital, Blue Cross Blue Shield still have not formally signed an agreement. That's important because I don't see the city coming on to sign an agreement before Jackson Hospital and Blue Cross Blue Shield sign their formal agreement. So we are not going to commit additional dollars while this thing is still in flux as it stands. Once they sign an agreement, we'll come back and we'll have another conversation with the CEO of Jackson, and we'll see exactly what things are and what their plans are moving forward. But for the city, we are thinking about how do we not only keep Jackson Hospital open, but how do we make sure it's not a place of last choice for somebody that's sick or somebody that has an injury, because those hospitals don't do very well. So we've reached out nationally to philanthropic organizations who have been a part of these type of public-private initiatives, and we've reached out to other governments that have had to face the same challenge to see both in our state and those outside of our state to see what capacity they use to stabilize their health care. How do they go about the decision-making process? And ultimately, here's the key part, guys, how is it funded? How is it paid for? And those are the things that I believe as a community, we're really going to be talking about in a very clairvoyant fashion, very clear fashion, and that we're going to have to make sure we're saying, hey, this is what it's going to take. This is what we're going to have to do. We're going to need everybody pushing in the same direction, because we don't know if it's going to be somebody from Prattville that needs that hospital or needs that surgery, somebody from Montgomery, somebody from Pike Road, but we have to make sure it exists in a way that is sustainable for us to keep the doctors and surgeons and nurses that we've lost over the last several years, to keep their confidence up and to make sure that patient care is what it needs to be. So I know that was a
Sure.
long answer to a short question, but I wanted to give you a little context to it as
Yeah,
well.
no, I appreciate that, and I would also add to your list of those who will need it, people like me who are in Montgomery for business or pleasure, who could have a health crisis and need
No
a
question.
hospital. So what happens if Blue Cross Blue Shield and Jackson don't sign this agreement that you're waiting on them to sign? What happens then?
Hey, Dave, I thought y'all supposed to give me softball questions. Isn't that what everybody says? Y'all just give me softball questions. That didn't seem like no softball question.
Well, wait a minute. It's on the script that you gave us to ask. I don't
what? So much for all the skeptics and cynics. They'll find something else to say. Sure. But if Jackson and Blue Cross don't sign that agreement, we're not in a good place. Let me first start there. When we're not in a good place for the long-term success of that hospital under its current structure. And if we cannot get them to the table, the governor's office cannot help get them to the table. Others who've been helping as well at the state and federal level can't help get them to the table to get this signed. Then we're really going to have to look at some aggressive means to maintain the hospital and to look at potential other entities that might be interested in working with said partner. I don't know if Jackson Healthcare Group can sustain itself through the end of this year without signing that agreement. I would be operating under the premise that they can't. Maybe they could. But I would have to operate from the premise of worst circumstance. And that is a bad circumstance that at any point, if they can't get that agreement signed, they might have to make some very hard and tough business decisions. And those hard and tough business decisions might be detrimental to the type of care we would like to see as a city Jackson Hospital offer not only our residents of Montgomery, but residents of Central Alabama and anyone else who would depend on getting quality health care while they're here in Montgomery. That would be a big problem.
Yeah, and it's definitely a regional issue. It's not just a Montgomery issue, it's a regional issue. One final question. You mentioned something earlier about that I thought was really interesting. You talked about, in fact, you said it a couple of times in this interview. You've talked about Alabamians seeming to innately have a scarcity mindset. And maybe I don't know, maybe you didn't mean Alabama. Well, I think you did. I think you meant Alabama culturally.
Yeah.
That's sort of embedded in the culture. What do you attribute that to?
Oh man, I attribute that, I think, to our ability to quote scripture, but our inability to really live by it. And we talk about faith, but we live out of fear. And I think there's an inherent distrust that we built over the years and decades in government when we're a government-dependent state. Some would say we are a welfare state. I've heard people say that. We get a lot more, I think about 3 to 4 times from the federal government than we put in. Right. So we rely on government dollars that come from Connecticut, that come from New York, Massachusetts, California, Illinois, the places whose GDP are many more times the size of ours, and populations are. It was ironic. I was just in Atlanta visiting a friend of mine. I was getting some medical care last week, and I saw that there's a billboard right on Peachtree Street that has the population. And many, many, many years ago, I remember when that billboard started with a 4. It's about the Atlanta metro population. And that billboard now starts with a 6, 6.5 million. And I didn't live too far from there in my time in Atlanta. And I say it's because that's more than the state of Alabama has completely.
Right.
And it's not just to talk about Atlanta. And when I talk to Leadership Alabama and groups that visit Montgomery, I talk about the fact that in the beginning of 2000, 2001, Alabama was larger than South Carolina. Alabama had a larger GDP, gross domestic product, and faster economic growth than South Carolina. That's not Georgia. That's not Tennessee. It's not North Carolina, Texas, Florida, so on. South Carolina. Well, we have lost that in the last 20 years. I know it's 2026. We lost it by 2020. Okay? So because we have operated out of a mindset of what we're going to lose, scarcity, or what we don't have, scarcity, as opposed to what we might gain, abundance, and what we do have, we have not implemented policies that would help grow our state to make it better for talent recruitment and retention. As mayors, when I meet with the other 9 mayors in the 10 largest cities in the state, we always talk about a brain drain. Even Huntsville talks about the brain drain. Well, we're losing folks to Nashville. Birmingham, we're losing folks to Atlanta, Charlotte, Dallas, Mobile. Well, we're losing folks to Houston. We're losing folks to other cities because there are more opportunities. And what sometimes we don't understand is, you know, and the Republicans like to talk about the haves and the have-nots, and the makers and the takers. I'm sorry, that's the phrase. I knew my Fox News terminology would come in handy. The makers and the takers. Well, if you don't have enough makers in your city or state, then it's not that other people are takers. It's just that they have to they are getters. And they have to get from somewhere to make it to the next day, to make it to the next week and next month. And so for us, David, I think we have been very risk averse as a state. We have been very conservative, small c, as a state, even when the Democrats were running the state, in doing big things and advancing big ideas and initiatives. But yet we wonder why that great surgeon won't stay here, that great accountant or that great engineer or that great principal or teacher decides to move their family somewhere where they don't have to worry about all the things that we bite and gnaw our fingernails on that really are, have simple answers. And I think that's because, again, as Alabamians, we always feel like the rug is going to be pulled out from under us like Charlie Brown. I know that's another age inappropriate analogy for Gen X. For Gen Z and millennials. I'm Gen X, but for those of us, we know what that means. There's just that feeling, unfortunately, because we don't have the confidence and we have not built the culture. And this is not just on elected officials. This is on business leaders. This is on faith leaders. This is on others. We have not built the culture to think about doing bigger things and better things for future generations that it is on us and we should be required to do in the way that I've seen in other southern cities and in other southern states. And I think that is one of the biggest barriers, not only to Montgomery, but I would say to us as a state and moving forward and seeing the progress we'd like to see.
Yeah. Last thing, and I'm going to kind of circle back and hit another one of these questions that was off the script here for you. But because I want to go back to Jackson Hospital for just a second. Because have you been able to ascertain or get any information about what the hell happened to Jackson Hospital? Because I'm told from the people that I spoke to somebody who was on the finance committee for years at Jackson Hospital, and as late as less than a decade ago, that hospital was making $4 million a month in profit. So what has transpired over the last, let's say, decade, the last 10 years, that has drained that hospital of resources? I mean, look, you can blame Obamacare all you want to. That's the end of the Obama era. That's the Trump era that we're starting 10 years ago now. So what happened in the last 10 years that has drained that hospital of resources to that extent?
I think it's, if I had to sum it up one way, I'd say mismanagement, for sure. And I would say gross mismanagement. I certainly don't think that COVID-19 helped Jackson Hospital. And I don't think the subsequent medical environment helped any of our medical providers, which already operate on razor-thin margins of 1% to 2%. typically in our state, and certainly not with Jackson Hospital's case. I think that our healthcare providers and insurers could do better to look out for the people of the city of Montgomery, and I would say the state of Alabama. I think it's unfortunate we've seen, and because they haven't been able to do that, we've seen rural hospitals close, and we have seen other hospitals come under such strain and burden that it's hard for them to be as productive in patient care and provide the type of services that's needed.
Yeah.
And finally, I think, from a local perspective and from a state perspective, we have not funded healthcare in a way, and from a federal perspective, in a way that's necessary to deal with the rising costs of healthcare. And it is really, really short-sighted for us at all levels of government to act as if everything is fine when it's not. Now, those are external factors to Jackson Hospital, but if I'm boiling Jackson Hospital down, it has just been gross mismanagement and a failure to adapt. And you have to be able to adapt to the marketplace from your day-to-day leadership, CEO to CEO space, to where things are now. Not where things were 10 or 20 years ago. I can't operate on the way things were when Mayor Bright was mayor. And he said the same thing to me. And Mayor Woodford can't operate the way things may have been under Mayor Bell. Because the times change and what we're required to do to provide the services people expect, and at the level people expect them, demands more and oftentimes costs more. And I don't think Jackson Hospital did a very good job of that. The board did a good job of that. And I think there was a lot of things that, quite frankly, this was a different organization. There'd be some much more serious accusations, maybe even charges being lodged at those who were responsible for this.
Yeah.
And so, for me, we're left to deal with, the crisis that it is, and to make sure that we try to make the best out of it. And I think working with the county leadership, we have done that thus far. But I will say this, and on this topic, it's going to take a much more aggressive stance from the city and the county, and probably some of our regional partners, both business and political, and our state, to make sure that Jackson doesn't fall in on itself, and to make sure that now we're able to stabilize, we're able to get at a baseline level and then grow it so it can thrive to be what it once was. We can't do that maintaining the status quo, guys. We're going to have to do something different, regardless of who the operator or who the owner of it is. That much I can tell you and your audience, that the status quo of what Jackson Hospital looked like prior to 2020, prior to 2021, we can't go back to those days and think that it's going to survive or thrive. It's going to require a much different set of policies, practices, and procedures to get it back to some level of stability, and hopefully a level where it can thrive moving forward. And we're going to have to make sure that management and board oversight is where it needs to be in the days ahead. Yeah. And we're going to have to tell the people about how we're going to do that over these next several weeks.
Yeah, well, I think people would be surprised by the names who were on that board, who led to some of this stuff. I think they'd be surprised by the names of people who had their fingers in that pie for a lot of years and did some very shady things with some of the projects that were built over there. There are names that there are names that have been on banners on construction projects around there for a lot of years, and they. Look, I know. I've talked to the people who were there, who got run out, who got bought out, who did different stuff, but it's been a mess. But look, we've kept you for an extra long time as usual, because you are our host here, and so that short thing that you predicted, we didn't do that. So, hey, thank you so much for coming on and spending time with us. And next time when we get you back on, I'm guessing next week, that we'll get you in here and talk about the Birmingham Stallions becoming the Montgomery Stallions, whatever.
Alabama, hey Josh, Alabama Stallions. Look, we're gonna do like the Tennessee Titans and the Minnesota Vikings.
I got you.
We're gonna make this about everybody buying into this whole thing. So we're working on it. We got some. Right. I think we got a call today. It's not today; it's tomorrow. So I got to double check that and kind of see just where we are. And maybe we'll have something fun to talk about on this next time. And by the way, on sports, shout out to the Biscuits for their tribute to the Montgomery Great Sox. That's who's had them representing from the Negro Southern Leagues.
Yes.
Who opened up and founded in 1920. And their exhibition they have right there at Davos Park now around all the players and teams in the Negro Leagues, and the Montgomery Great Sox being one of those. So proud to represent Montgomery and so many of those pioneers and trailblazers and what they did.
Nice, absolutely. That's great. I'm working on getting some of that gear. If only I knew somebody. If only
I might know a guy.
Yeah, right. That's okay. All right, we'll see what we can do. Hey, I'm sure we'll see you this weekend. We'll be around town, and it's for the Democrats meeting, and we'll see. Yeah, right. Should be fun time. Should be a fun time. That's right.
That's gonna be livelier than the city council meetings. I can promise you that.
That's right. That's right. All right. Thank you, Mayor Reed. We really appreciate it.
Take care, Mayor.
All right. See you guys.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna slide out. We'll come back in just a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week. Back in a moment.